Date today is April 2nd, 2015. There is a Portland police sting operative just walking back and forth on the catwalk out here. The sting operative was coming from the apartment just right next door right here. And he came out of that apartment. He walked over this way in front of my apartment. Got in front of this apartment, and then he went inside this apartment right here. And he set something down on a table or something like that, because I could hear these walls are thin enough to where if they set something heavy down on it, there, he just walk right by my goddamn door again. Son of a bitch, wearing a fucking genie. They're deliberately and intentionally walking back and forth. Looks like Shawna's going to meet up with the son of a bitch. Notice how Shawna, I don't know if I caught it or not. Shawna's holding her cell phone in her hand. She's looking at her cell phone as though she got a message or something on it. These sting ops are being very active right in front of my face. They're not trying to hide it. As I was saying, a sting operative. I've explained. My name is Terry Wager. The date today is April 2nd, 2015. I've explained on previous vlogs. I am surrounded by a police sting operation, of which my wife and her daughters and my wife's sister, they were sleeping around with these goddamn fucking cops, and they were using sting tactics to frame me for crimes, and they were using my wife's lover, Officer Eric Carlson of the Portland Police Department, as a double to frame me. And when I found out about this, my wife poisoned me. And the Portland Police Department used their influence at the hospital to cover it up. And I have been harassed, and sorry, it's hard for me to talk. It's not easy for me to move around, and it's not easy for me to breathe very well because of the fact that my wife poisoned me, and she was keeping me debilitated by repeatedly poisoning me. And while my wife and her daughters had me debilitated from being poisoned, my wife's fuck buddies in law enforcement were continuing to set me up for shit. So, while I was in a debilitated condition, they were setting me up for homicides. So, my wife and her daughters, including the female that just walked out the door, they're guilty of murder. They have multiple murders under their belt. I am currently surrounded by my wife and her daughter's fuck buddies in law enforcement. They know they have me debilitated, they have been trying to provoke and harass me into fighting back, and the reason why is because they have me surrounded, and these are fucking people in law enforcement, and they're packing guns. So the moment I lift a pinky to fight back, that's when they just pull out their guns and open fire, and then they just label me as a bad guy on the news, and they fake justification. And cops, of course, never stand trial for jack shit when they shoot people. And they'll just use any act on my part to fight back. They'll just use that video clip of me fighting back as their justification in opening fire. So it's essentially, it amounts to being, it's similar to it's a situation that's very similar to where a school kid is being bullied in a schoolyard by a gang of 8 or so bullies, and the bullies have the kid encircled, and the bullies are pushing and shoving and grinning and smirking and mocking their victim that they repeatedly push and shove, and they have their victim encircled. And the moment their victim raises an arm or a pinky in self-defense, that's when the gang literally, and they'll record the fact that they're doing this to their victim, and then when their victim fights back, they just pull out a knife or they pull out a gun and they just shoot the person. And then guess what? They edit that video to where the only thing they show is the person fighting back. In other words, they don't show the provoking and the harassment that the bullies are doing. And then the bullies claim self-defense. Poor cop just walked right by my fucking door. Deliberately and intentionally walking right back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That son of a bitch, he's going right to that apartment right next door, right over here. I just walked by. I don't know if it showed up or not because of the sun glare, but he was holding his cell phone up and looking at his cell phone. He's doing the same thing that Shawna, my daughter, was doing as she walked out the door, holding her cell phone up and looking at it. Now, that guy that walked that way, he came from that apartment initially, and he went this way. He went into this apartment that's on my left, set something down. It was pretty loud. I don't know what it was, but he set something down. It was loud enough to make a loud, loud clank noise, something loud. And then he came out of that apartment. He walked back this way, and he went back to this apartment. So these sting operatives have that apartment right next door to me to my right. They have the apartment right next door to my left. And they also have the apartment directly below mine. And the apartment manager here that lives on site is aiding and abetting these trespassers and criminals in the commission of their crimes, because she lived in that apartment building on the other side of the courtyard. But she moved over to this building and moved into the apartment directly below the apartment that's below mine. And I already know the Portland police. Oh, looks like he's coming back again. Deliberate and intentional going back and forth. Deliberate and intentional. This fucking Portland pedophile cop is wearing a beanie hat. Deliberately and intentionally blocking. You have to understand, this is an intentional. I have to set this phone down for a second. I'll just fix this darn thing. This is a deliberate and intentional harassment by these police officers. These people are guilty of murder. They were trying to frame me for a fucking murder. that's my daughter Shawna walking down the parking lot, and there's that sting op standing right there. Now, I already know that they have me under video surveillance. Keep in mind, both of them were holding their cell phones. They're acting in a coordinated manner at this moment. Both of the, Shawna, as she was going out the door, she was holding her cell phone up as though she's reading a text message or something. And she's hanging around outside with these sting operatives. These sting ops are, for me anyway, it's pretty blatant because their activities are coordinated. I've just demonstrated that this whole time that my daughter Shawna Wagar was out there, and this Portland sting op right there, he's deliberately and intentionally walking back and forth, back and forth. They're trying to provoke me into confronting them and or acting in self-defense. They don't really give a damn if I know. They already know, because I caught these people. I caught these sting operatives committing a murder in March 26 of 2007. These sting operatives committed a murder. My wife and her daughters and my wife's sister were palling around and sleeping around with these sting operatives. And it was an officer, a Portland officer, Eric Carlson, and his partner, Officer John Ray, that committed the homicide. And my wife, Joan Wagar, and our daughters, and my wife's sister, and there was two other female officers. One of the female officers was named Adrian. The other one was named, first name was Erica. I don't know their last names. I don't know any of the people that my wife. I don't know these people personally that my wife and her daughters were sleeping around with, but I know of some of their names and stuff. I found out about my wife's affair with Officer Eric Carlson. My wife even admitted to her affair with him, but she was lying about him being a cop. She was trying to hide the fact he was a cop, and she thought I didn't know he was a cop. So she didn't have a problem admitting to me to her affair with this officer, but she didn't want me to know he was a cop, and she didn't want me to know he was a look-alike, because they were using him as a photo double. And he dyed his hair. He's a brunette. Officer Eric Carlson is a brunette, but he fucking dyed his hair blonde so that he could impersonate me. He's a close look-alike to me. He's not an exact twin, but he's a damn close look-alike. In other words, if he dyes his hair like mine and dresses up like me, from a distance you would swear to God the dude looks exactly like me. Now, up close, you can see there's differences, but from a distance, that's how closely he resembles me. So he's what you would refer to as a double, a look-alike, but he's not exact. You know, he's not an exact twin. And he was deliberately and intentionally changing and altering his appearance for the purpose of impersonating me and framing me for crimes. And this is what my wife, Joan Wagar, was trying to hide from me, and this is what my daughters were trying to hide from me. Well, on March 26, 2007, Officer Eric Carlson and Officer John Ray, with the help of my wife Joan Wagar and her daughter Kaylee Wagar, they helped them break into my home while I was asleep. I was asleep on the living room couch. The morning on March 26, 2007, I woke up at 5:55 a.m. hearing what sounded like my wife whispering to a dude and a dude whispering back, and hearing what sounded like sex noises taking place. So I was under the impression I'm catching my wife and her affair with an armed Portland cop, of which I had no intention of confronting because, first and foremost, our marriage was already over. I didn't give a rat's ass. I didn't care anymore about, fuck the marriage. I didn't give a shit about the marriage. She bitch poisoned me. I was debilitated at that point. So I'm already debilitated from being poisoned by her. So when I woke up that morning at 5:55 hearing these noises, I'm thinking to myself, gee, I'm catching my wife in her affair with this fucking pedophile, goddamn look-alike cop. So I decided I'm going to put an audio recorder in my wife's purse and then lay back down on the couch and act like I'm still asleep so that I can prove their affair, prove Officer Eric Carlson was in my home, and find out what the fuck's going on. Well, I proved their affair. It proved their affair, all right, and it proved that everybody pretty much at Eastport Walmart and Clackamas Walmart knew my wife was having this affair with this cop and knew he was a lookalike and knew he was acting as a double because they knew he changed his appearance so that he could impersonate me. But they were in my home that morning because they were setting me up for a fucking homicide that these officers committed. And my audio recorder... basically, they were what the noises I was hearing at that moment wasn't my wife and Officer Eric Carlson having sex. It was Officer Eric Carlson and Officer John Ray having sex in our daughter's room, which is next to my wife's room. And they were in our daughter's room, and they had some other female in there with them. And they murdered that female. They raped, and they photographed, and they murdered that female. And they were doing all of this with the intent of setting me up to get the blame. My wife was in her room, I believe, at the time, and she warned them that I woke up. But she thought I was just going to the bathroom, or to the, not the bathroom, to the kitchen to get a drink of water, and then I just laid back down. That was her perception of what I did. So she thought she and they thought I just got up to get a drink of water and then went back to sleep. So they were trying to be quiet. What I did was I got up and I put an audio recorder in my wife's purse, and I used the pretense of getting a drink of water. Well, I actually needed a drink of water because my mouth was extremely dry. But I needed an excuse to get up, and I used that as my excuse. So I just got up from the couch, went into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water from the kitchen sink, and then I quickly grabbed my wife's purse, and I put my audio recorder in it, put it on record, and then closed her purse. And then I went back to the couch and just laid back down and pretended to be asleep, thinking I'm catching my wife in her affair with an armed cop. What I caught was essentially, and yes, he's an armed cop, all right. He was armed, but he wasn't alone. He had his partner, Officer Eric Carlson, had his partner John Ray with him. There was two other female officers present, one named Adrian, another one named Erica, and they were involved in it. I don't know if at any time if they came in, broke into our home or not, but I do know they were, for a fact, they were outside of the apartment, and they were talking to my wife, Joan Wager, and Officer Eric Carlson and Officer John Ray through the bedroom window. So this is like 5. Keep in mind, I woke up at exactly 5:55 a.m. So they were. That person that was standing there, that I got on video here, that's not the person that walked by, because that person not wearing a beanie hat. The person that walked by repeatedly was wearing a beanie hat. I want to point out the fact that that person that was standing there, he's a fucking Portland cop. He's a sting op. He's a goddamn murderer. He came from that apartment. He came from that apartment right there, and he walked past this way, got in front of this apartment, and then he went inside this apartment. He didn't knock on the door, he just went inside. So these Portland police officers have that apartment under their control and that apartment, and he's deliberately and intentionally going back and forth. It's a form of provoking. He wants me to know. He wants me to confront them. Keep in mind, they're cops. Keep in mind, they have me surrounded. Keep in mind, my wife and daughters were sleeping around with these people and are a part of the crimes that these people are guilty of. They're not here to investigate me. They're here because they already framed me for crimes and publicly gave me the blame for crimes of which Portland cops committed. And they want that blame to stick on me. So they're here to terrorize me and to further harass me and to provoke me and to fabricate more evidence to make me look like a bad guy. Because they already publicly gave me the blame. Now, they have no intention of having a trial. I mean, come on. God. They have no intention of having a trial. None. None. They have no intention of having... That bitch that just walked by, the last one that came by, is a female. She was grinning. Now, I don't know if these people are, these same people I got on video coming from the apartment directly below mine. So the Portland Police Department, that has full control of all the apartments surrounding mine. And the apartment manager moved from that building that's across the courtyard over to this building and has moved into the apartment right next door to the apartment that's directly below mine. These people are sting operatives. They're guilty of murder. They're deliberately and intentionally harassing and provoking me. They have me debilitated from poisoning me. They have... sorry, it's not easy to talk and breathe at the same time because it's not easy for me to breathe and talk at the same time. To be poisoned is to be severely debilitated. I'm partially paralyzed from being poisoned by them, and I bleed internally. What organs I don't know, but I've had organs inside of me explode, and which caused me to bleed profusely internally, and I was unable to get help at the hospital because of the police department's influence with the hospital. And that's pretty much how they covered up the poisonings. They just talked to my doctor out in the hallway at the ER, outside of my ER room, and a 60-second conversation is all it took for one of my wife's lover's partners to cover up the fact that my wife poisoned me. They just vilified me, labeled me as a bad guy, and they used that as their justification into coercing the doctor into not helping me. And that's how they covered up the poisonings. Now, they're sting operatives. They're deliberately and intentionally going back and forth in front of my apartment. Now, before I started recording, one of these people that just went by, oh, here's Shawna. What?
The receipt for the rent. And I need you to sign this. It's just the moving out papers.
What, rent's already paid?
Yeah, I told you I was paying it.
Oh.
I just gave it to him.
Well, why give it to me? It's yours. You paid it. What's this?
Oh, you've been wanting the receipt.
What is this?
The validation is moving out.
Why do I need to sign it?
Because both of us are tenants of the apartment. Even if one tenant moves out and one stays, both tenants have to sign something validating it.
I'm not signing shit. If you don't like it, you can evict me. I don't care what she says. I don't have to sign a damn thing. I own my signature. I'm surrounded by fucking police sting operatives. These people that came from this fucking apartment right there just demonstrated how they came out of that apartment and they went right in front of my apartment here and then they went right inside this apartment. They didn't knock. They just went inside. So the Portland Police Department has control of that apartment right there and that apartment right there. And I've already got video of these very same people from late last year, which is just about, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months ago, coming from the apartment directly below mine, which means the Portland Police Department has that apartment, they have this apartment, they have this apartment directly below mine, and the apartment manager is aiding and abetting these trespassers because since they're police sting operatives, they don't technically live here. And since they obviously have access to that apartment and to this apartment and to this apartment, they're just freely going back and forth as though they own the damn building. They're clearly not legal tenants, which means they're trespassers. And since they intend on deliberately and intentionally going back and forth in front of my apartment, it's clear and deliberate and intentional harassment and terrorism. They're flaunting the fact they have this apartment surrounded. I ain't going to sign jack shit for anybody. These people are guilty of murder. I've already charged Officer Eric Carlson and Officer John Ray publicly of murder. Joan Wager and Kaylee Wager and Vicky Rosales was aiding and abetting them in the commission of those crimes, and they bragged to everybody at Clackamas Walmart. I know damn well they ain't got the balls to have a trial. I can subpoena everybody from both Eastport and Clackamas Walmart from 2005 to 2007, since it's open knowledge in both stores that my wife and daughters were sleeping around with these cops. And gee, I discovered in January 2005, Officer Eric Carlson's a brunette, and when I found out Officer Eric Carlson dyed his hair so he could impersonate me, I found out at the exact same time that it was open knowledge at Eastport Walmart, and that was April 2005. So what's that tell me in March of 2007, when Officer Eric Carlson and Officer John Ray committed a fucking homicide, and then they broke into my home to plant evidence to frame me for the fucking crime, and then Officer Eric Carlson and Officer John Ray and their whore-ass girlfriends, Joan Wager, and 2 other police officer bitches, Adrian and Erica, go straight to Clackamas Walmart as a group, and then they all start bragging about it, and then they laugh about it, and they brag about how I was asleep at the time, and they brag about how they were framing me as a fucking pedophile, and they're fucking sitting there discussing how easy it is for Officer Eric Carlson to copy my mannerisms. Guess what? They're guilty of murder, and there are 2 fucking Walmart stores fucking full of witnesses, and it's open knowledge. They're goddamn murderers, and they're using doubles to set people up. Now, I've already established, I'm recording right now, just so you know, which is why I'm not aiming it at you. I'm not trying to, technically, I don't have the legal right to do that because we're in the privacy of our own apartment, but I'm not hiding the fact from you that I'm recording. I'm documenting the fact these motherfuckers are going back and forth. And they started this before you went out the door. That's sort of the first time they came out of that apartment that's right over there and deliberately stomped as they walked past my apartment, and they got in front of this apartment, and they went right inside. They didn't even knock. They just opened the fucking door, went inside, and they set something down on a table in that apartment that made a loud clank noise. So I know damn well these motherfuckers that right now are in that apartment, they have access. They're using and accessing that apartment. They're using and accessing this apartment. And I've got video of these very same people using the apartment directly below mine. Now, technically, their bullshit sting operation is bullshit. And this is illegal criminal conspiracy and with full intent of premeditated murder on their part. They have quite literally taken over this entire area of the building. The apartment manager is aiding and abetting these criminals and allowing these criminals to take over all the apartments surrounding mine. She is aiding and abetting these trespassers. Since they're law enforcement, they don't legally live here. They have a legal address elsewhere, which means this is not their place of residency, which means they're fucking trespassing every fucking time they're going back and forth in front of my fucking apartment. They have no business being here. None. Only tenants can live here, and they're deliberate and intentional going back and forth, and flaunting the fact that they have all the apartments surrounding mine. That's a form of terrorism. They already have me. I'm sitting here bleeding internally, in a shit ton of pain, partially paralyzed. And I'm surrounded by these fucking criminals. They're fucking guilty of murder. I'm a fucking witness, and I'm being harassed and gang-stalked by a bunch of grinning, smirking numbnuts that are damn lucky I don't have the means to defend myself. Because I'm not going to give a fuck about court. I'll kick the judge in the nuts just to draw attention to the trial. I'm not signing anything for this worthless piece of fucking shit, goddamn criminal apartment manager. I ain't going to sign nothing for her or anybody else. If she wants to evict me, she can go right ahead. I don't give a shit. I don't have to sign a damn thing for her. And this is illegal criminal conspiracy. She's aiding and abetting these Portland pedophile police officers, and I've already established these very people that are coming from that apartment right there, they have access to all the apartments surrounding mine. I've got video of those same people coming from the apartment directly below mine late last year, which was about, I think it was like October and November of last year in 2014, when I caught, they were in the apartment below mine, they were pounding on a fucking wall right in this area, which would be the equivalent of them being in an apartment down below, and they're like hitting the wall near the ceiling. And they exited the apartment from down below, and I could hear them opening the door and heard them close the door, so I got up from my chair. I was recording the fact they were making that pounding noise right there. I caught it on video, and I went over there and to the window to see who the fuck it was, and it's these fucking people. And the dude that was wearing the baseball cap, he was wearing a Portland police officer's jacket. So I've already established these people are Portland police, and that they're sting operatives, and that this fucking apartment manager is aiding and abetting these